you're about to hear is not a story of myth or legend. It's a tale that blends faith, science, and mystery. A story of a young woman whose life was marked by what many consider a miraculous encounter, and whose death, decades later, would reveal something so extraordinary that it continues to baffle scientists to this day. It's the story of Saint Bernadette Soubirous and the astonishing events that took place after her death. Born on January 7, 1844, in the small town of Lourdes, France, Bernadette Soubirous was the eldest of 9 children in a poor family. Life was never easy for Bernadette. Her family lived in a cramped, damp, and cold home that lacked the basic comforts of life. At the age of 14, Bernadette was often sick, suffering from asthma and other ailments. Yet none of this could prepare her for what was to come. In 1858, Bernadette's life would take a dramatic turn when she visited a cave near the town called the Grotto of Massabielle. It was here that she experienced a series of visions. A woman, radiant and dressed in white, appeared to her. This woman, whom Bernadette later identified as the Virgin Mary, spoke to her, urging Bernadette to tell the priests to build a chapel at the site and to encourage people to come and wash in the spring that would appear there. Bernadette's visions were met with skepticism. Many questioned her faith, and some even accused her of lying. Yet, despite the public mockery, Bernadette remained steadfast. The visions continued for months, and the spring that Mary had spoken of became a place where many believed miraculous healings occurred. In 1862, the Church officially declared Bernadette's visions as genuine. Only 4 years later, Bernadette entered the convent of the Sisters of Charity in Nevers, France, where she lived the rest of her life in humble devotion. On April 16, 1879, at the age of 35, Bernadette passed away from tuberculosis, a disease that had plagued her for much of her life. She was buried in the convent's cemetery, and her story might have ended there, except for one very strange and inexplicable event that would unfold in the years to come. Years after her death, something extraordinary happened. In 1909, 30 years after Bernadette's death, the convent decided to exhume her body. They did so as part of the regular practice of exhuming the remains of the deceased members of the order. But they were in for a shocking discovery. What they found was a body that appeared almost as though it had just been laid to rest. The body of Sister Bernadette Soubirous was not decayed as one might expect after 3 decades. In fact, it was perfectly preserved. The face was still lifelike, and her hands and feet were remarkably intact. Even more startling, there was no odor of decay, which is almost always present in exhumed bodies. At first, the nuns who had cared for her and the clergy who witnessed the exhumation were unsure of what to make of this strange preservation. But one thing was clear. Bernadette's body seemed to defy the natural laws of decomposition. The intactness of her body raised questions, and many people started to believe it was a sign of her holiness. The question arose: could this preservation be a miracle? Could it be the result of divine intervention? Or was there a more earthly explanation? While many were quick to jump to conclusions about the miraculous nature of Bernadette's preservation, skeptics began offering their own possible explanations. The most common argument was that the body was simply preserved due to natural environmental factors. Some claimed that the body had been stored in a cool crypt where the lower temperatures slowed down the usual decomposition process. They pointed out that cold and dry conditions can sometimes preserve bodies for longer periods of time. It's a well-known fact that bodies preserved in cool, dry environments, such as mummies in Egypt or well-preserved bodies found in bogs, are often better preserved than those exposed to heat and moisture. Others have suggested that the nuns might have embalmed the body or used some form of chemical preservation, even if the records didn't show any such activity. They argued that the absence of decomposition might just be due to some unknown preservation technique employed by the convent. While these skeptical explanations are plausible at first glance, the facts don't entirely support them. Let's start with the cool crypt theory. Yes, cool, dry conditions can slow decomposition. But they do not completely prevent it. Other nuns were buried in the same crypt, yet still decomposed over time. Bodies found in cold crypts or catacombs still experience the natural process of decay. So why was Bernadette's body so different? And what about embalming or chemical preservation? The records from the convent show no evidence that Bernadette's body was embalmed or treated with any chemicals. In fact, the convent kept meticulous records, and there was no mention of any unusual preservation techniques. If chemical preservation had been used, it would have been detectable in the tissue and skin, but no signs were found. Then, there's the matter of the odor. Typically, bodies that are exhumed after a long period of time will have an unmistakable odor of decay, but Bernadette's body showed no such smell, which is highly unusual. Scientists have noted that this is a very rare occurrence, even in cool, dry crypts. The final nail in the coffin for the skeptic view is the condition of the body itself. The skin, face, and hands were remarkably lifelike. Even after 30 years, the body remained almost unchanged, something that goes beyond the capabilities of natural preservation. So while skeptics may try to offer explanations, the evidence points to something much more mysterious. Could this be a case of divine intervention? Or is there something we don't yet understand about the process of preservation? In the years that followed the discovery of Bernadette's preserved body, scientists began to take a keen interest in this remarkable phenomenon. The body had been displayed in a glass coffin, allowing people from all over the world to visit and pay their respects. But as the years passed, scientists began to ask, what was the secret behind this unusual preservation? In 1919, 11 years after Bernadette's body was exhumed, a medical investigation was launched. Scientists used advanced methods, including chemical analysis, to study her body. One of the first conclusions was that the body appeared to have undergone natural mummification. However, the process was not entirely understood. No embalming agents were used, and the body was not subjected to any kind of formal preservation techniques that would explain why it remained intact. Again, in the 1970s, another round of scientific studies were carried out. Scientists examined the body in greater detail using X-ray technology and even a special form of radiography. They confirmed that Bernadette's body did not show signs of typical decay, such as the presence of bacteria or mold, which are usually found in bodies that have been left to decompose for such a long time. Some scientists even studied the environment where Bernadette was buried. They found that the soil had properties that may have contributed to the preservation. For instance, the soil in the convent cemetery was particularly dry and rich in minerals, which could have acted to slow down the composition process. This dry and mineral-rich soil, however, had no effect on the other bodies buried in the same location. Despite all the scientific examinations, no clear explanation could account for this preservation of her body. The scientists could offer no definitive answers to the mystery. Some believed it was the result of natural environmental factors, while others believed it could be a miracle. As the years went on, Bernadette's body continued to be a subject of study and awe. In 1925, her body had been moved to a more elaborate sealed glass tomb, where it remains today, still viewable by the public. The nuns who cared for Bernadette's body and the many devotees who visited to see her remained convinced that her preservation is a sign of her holiness. In 2018, another round of scientific studies was conducted using the latest techniques. The results again were inconclusive, but they reaffirmed that Bernadette's body had been preserved in ways that defy the typical processes of decomposition. The body showed no signs of the typical decay that happens to most human remains over time. The mystery remains unsolved. Yet for many, the miracle of Saint Bernadette's incorruptible body is not one to be explained by science alone. For countless devotees, it stands as a sign of her sanctity and her closeness to God. The story of Saint Bernadette Soubirous and her incorruptible body is a powerful reminder of the mysteries that can exist in our world, some that science cannot explain, and others that faith has long held dear. Her body, preserved through decades of study, continues to challenge the boundaries of what we understand about life, death, and the possibility of miracles. What do you think is the truth behind Saint Bernadette's body? Leave your thoughts in the comments.